sharing my screen. I think you might need to give me access to share screen.
Oh, it may have reset. Let me.
Actually, here you go. There you go.
Okay, perfect.
Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, there you
Yes.
go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you for the privilege here. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me. I am Joey Chan. I'm a Salesforce MVP, a MuleSoft Ambassador, and Well-Architected Ambassador. I'm also a proud husband and father to 6-year-old and 3-year-old girls. I'm the founder of and technical architect at Cloud Jedi Solutions. And I'm also a 33 times Salesforce and MuleSoft certified architect. And I'm one of the organizers for both Philippines Dreamin' and Southeast Asia Dreamin'. For those who are not too familiar with Dreamin' events, these are all volunteer community events that we organize. So the last one, we actually had around close to 400 registrations here in the Philippines. So if any one of you are planning to visit the Philippines anytime soon, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. All right. With that, I'll go ahead and start. So I'd like this to be a bit more interactive, all right? First question is, any one of you doing any architecture work? Yes, no, not yet. Anybody wants to become an architect or aspires to be?
Someday.
Someday, yes.
Yes.
Hopefully we can make it soon, right?
Yes, that's why we're here.
All right, there you go. So today I'll be talking about architecting an automated Salesforce solutions. I guess show of hands, or is it your first time hearing about well-architected, or have you heard of it before, or have you explored that?
அதுக்குள்ள பழுத்தெடுத்து
Or you could just post it in the chat if you're a bit shy. Anyone?
First time I've heard of this.
Never heard. All right. No, that's a fair answer. Take note, it's a fairly new one. So just give you a quick background. So we won't be going through it. You've probably seen this. I'm not going to tell you anything that that's not already available. And I actually don't work for Salesforce. All right. So today we'll be going through the introduction and more importantly, the hands-on. So we'll go through some exercises, going through the readout. So you'll be able to go through a series of questions and you'll be able to think about potential solutions. And we'll also be showing you what Salesforce is giving as their potential solution. Take note, like with anything else with architecture, there are many ways to solve the same problem. So a big part of it is understand the context, and sometimes we'll really have to make assumptions, right? And then we'll be able to do a recap and a Q&A. So first off, what is Salesforce Well-Architected? So the term well-architected is not something unique to Salesforce. There are already other companies that have that. For example, we have Google, we have Amazon. They all have a concept of well-architected. But what is well-architected? It's basically, in this case, Salesforce giving you different prescriptions in terms of what a healthy solution would look like. Think about it this way. So if you go through documentation, if you go through Trailhead, if you go through certifications, it tells you what are the different features, right? It tells you all of the different capabilities. But the question is, how do you use all of them together, right? So in many cases, when I was doing before well-architected, I'm mostly actually relying on different folks within the community. For example, other MVPs, other architects, other CDAs, in terms of what a recommended solution is. But now, it's actually now Salesforce actually prescribing this for us. So it's basically a prescriptive guidance and resources and tools to help you implement Salesforce the right way. So any one of you familiar with the architect website? Yes, or not yet? No? All right. Let's actually
Yes.
go through this really quickly. We won't be going through all of it, but I wanted to make sure that you know all of these. So we have different subsites. So we have developer.salesforce.com. We also have the admins.salesforce.com. We also have the architect.salesforce.com. This is a series of different content targeted towards architects. And for our purposes for today, we'll be going through the well-architected framework. So just to give an idea, this is where you could find all of the resources. Everything that I'll be talking to you is actually something that's available. You can go through this, and a big part of it is understanding what's the framework. It's actually categorized into 3 pillars. Number 1 is trusted. Number 2 is easy and adaptable. It's something common to many things, right? But within this, it's actually what we call a series of white papers. So for those that aren't familiar with white papers, it's basically a really long, you could consider it a really long article. For example, in this case, within the trusted, we have secure, compliant, and reliable, right? So within the secure, so this is considered the white paper, and it's actually composed of different sections. The nice thing about this is it gives you how long it is, right? In this case, it's actually 32-minute read. It's composed of the header in terms of what it is for, and organization security, authentication. And a big part of it is understanding how do you use what, right? In this case, it's composed of different sections for session security, data security, and it also shares the different ways Salesforce can be used in order to, in this case, secure the platform. You have some of the Apex classes for the crypto, API access control, different security. How do you then implement a certificate? And then we also have code scanner. So it's basically a long document, but at the same time, something that everyone within the Salesforce ecosystem that's implementing Salesforce should be aware of. Because these are what would tell you, hey, am I actually creating something that's healthy, or am I actually just creating technical debt for the company? All right. And along with that, I'll just mention too that there's actually a lot more, not just the well-architected framework. We also have different diagrams for those that are already doing architecture on Salesforce. Then diagrams are your friend, and we have quite a lot of templates in terms of being able to do that. And these are something that you can then import into Lucid or whatever it is that you're using. So you can use Google Slide. You can also download it as a PowerPoint template. This should actually help in terms of being able to create the different diagrams, and there's a lot of pre-made templates that you can then use. And then we also have different parts, like we have the decision guide. So for example, if you're going to automate a certain process, there are so many options, right? You have, for example, workflow rules. We have process builder. That's now being deprecated, right? And just a quick announcement. I've heard that they're now ending the support for that, I believe, end of next year. So that's the current target. So you shouldn't be using that anymore. But then now we have flows and Apex, right? When do you use what? When do you use before save flow? When do you use after save? When they use Apex triggers, right? This should actually tell you a lot of the different consideration in terms of performance, in terms of what's available and what you can do, right? Same thing with, for example, the building forms. We have quite a lot of options in terms of building forms within Salesforce. Number 1 is, for example, at the most basic, we have the page layouts, right? Next step there is dynamic forms. When they use a screen flow. And if you have, for example, you're part of the industries, you may have Omni Studio. How do you then use a screen flow combined with LWC or purely just LWC, right? So these are some of the things that are prescribed by Salesforce. And just a tip for everyone, this is something that's well worth it in terms of your 30, 45 minutes in terms of being able to understand this. Because this would equip you, and at the same time, if you're working with consultancies or even if you're doing it in-house, this should help you be much more confident in the solutions that you're giving. And at the same time, that should also help you defend whenever there could be some questions in terms of why did you do it this way, right? Any questions so far? Not yet? All right, let's just go back. So in a way, why does the well-architected matter, right? So the problem there is there's so many ways we can actually implement Salesforce. We could implement it for a one user org, or we could be talking about tens of thousands of users that are using Salesforce. But do we have any specific benchmarks that are common to healthy solutions? This is why it matters, right? At Salesforce, everything we do as a company and as people is guided by the core values, and a big part of it is we have to be trusted in terms of being able to apply this to the architecture. So as I mentioned, it's composed of 3 pillars: trusted, easy, and adaptable. And within that are subcomponents like secure, compliant, and reliable, intentional, automated, and engaging. For this specific workshop, we'll be focusing on the automated aspect of it, right? There's actually several other types of workshop. And take note, this is the same type of workshops that we do directly in Dreamforce or TDX. And there are also other events that we're doing this. And one thing to consider there is most of the time, they're actually quite full, mainly because there's only a limit of up to 40 people that can get in. All right. So with that, we'll be focusing on the easy section, wherein we're able to deliver solutions fast, right? And it's actually well architected to be simple, automated, and engaging. So for our purposes, we'll be focusing on the automated solution that meets the goals and objectives. So we won't be going through this in too much detail, but as I mentioned, we actually have different topics within the automated, right? Within that, we also have the different sections for process design, operational logic, APIs, data handling, and error handling. Just for example, in many cases, whenever we're implementing something, we want to be able to produce certain KPIs, right? How do we know that we're successful in this implementation? In this case, we have KPIs for the automation. And another question is, can the business report against those KPIs based on the data, right? It's one way to measure success of a project. And then, for example, error handling. Some of you have already created some flows. Question is, do you have error handling in your flows, right? Whenever you have DML operations. So question is, will it just show you a really nasty error message that nobody would understand? Or is it something that's going to throw an error that can actually help the user understand that, hey, I missed this value or I missed this field, that's why it's throwing out an error. So can it actually parse error information and execute next steps? So do we have clear paths for fatal and recoverable errors? Is the difference between error types clear? So these are some of the questions that, take note, not just the architect needs to know. Even if you're an admin, even if you're a junior admin, these are key information that everyone should learn. Whether you're a developer, whatever role that you have, consultant, these will simply help you in terms of being able to a better consultant or developer or architect, and eventually open up the opportunities for you to be able to step up to become an architect if you choose to. And one tip that I actually do, remember, there's actually a series of white papers, right? One thing I did, especially for our team, is I actually printed out all of it. take note, every now and then they would actually update this. But this is something that it's well worth it for the time. After I printed it, I would actually go to the coffee shop and spend several hours there and just remove any distractions like phones or laptop and just read through it. It's one of the best investments in terms of time if you are serious about your Salesforce career. All right? With that, any questions before we go hands-on? Yes? No? Not yet? So would probably later, Jason, while you're preparing for the breakout groups. So I'll just read through the scenario and then we can go from there, all right? So for this specific scenario, we have a company called Dream Travel. They're a travel and hospitality company that uses Salesforce. And they want to improve the experience for customers dealing with delays when traveling. Many of you have probably experienced delay, whether it's flights or whatever reasons, right? So it's quite common. I mean, most, if not all, have already experienced this, right? The thing is, we have two challenges. So you'll spend equal amounts of time solving these two problems. And in this case, you don't need to worry about this part saving room for your board because we'll be using an app called Excalibur. So I'll be sharing a link later per group, and then Jason will also have another one. But we'll go through the challenge. And then, can you all see this cheat sheet? Can you open it up? Actually, you don't need to have it now, but we can paste that cheat sheet on the Excalibur. It's basically just this one. All right. So we'll have this scenario. So here's the challenge. When customers have a delay, they call Dream Travel. Imagine you're the company, right? And agents use this script to gather customer information, respond to issues, and provide any applicable confirmation numbers. Customers regularly complain about long wait times. Call centers are overwhelmed during busy travel seasons. And Dream Travel's executives have also noticed that the wait times and call times are exceeding their targets, and they want to reduce call times. So here's the challenge here. For each of these 5 items, I'd want you to be able to identify, number 1, is it well architected or not, yes or no? And the question is, why? So you'll actually be using this specific cheat sheet in terms of, the question is, does it have proper error handling, yes or no? So if it doesn't, then it's not well architected, right? And then if yes, then what's the reason? Why? Is it following a clear logic with proper process design, operational logic? All right. Any questions before we start? You'll be given 10 minutes for this. So any questions?
I did put the link in the chat if anybody needs to get it. We'll also have it on the in the breakout groups as well. So
all right, so that's the link to the cheat sheet, so you can open it up. And then what I'll do is I'll also share the link to the Excalibur later for the group that I'll be facilitating.
yeah, I'll do the same. Yeah, let me set up the rooms here
Yep.
real quick. I didn't want to start yet because I wasn't sure exactly what would happen if I started. So
yep. So what I'll do is I'll also just copy and paste this one into the Excalibur. So that folks can actually then do this. All right, let me know once you're ready. Probably, should we give it a bit more time? I think we should be okay with 10 minutes, right? All right,
yeah, I think so.
I'll stop enjoying now. right? Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. So the let's see, the rooms are open. How do I have everybody join? Okay, it looks like they're automatically. So if you're okay, cool. Hey everybody.
Provoking, all right? So next one is before we go through the answers, we'll go through a second challenge now. So in this case, we have Dream Travel, and they want to add functionality into their existing customer portal to allow customers to submit help requests without calling a travel agent. So they've already started working on it, but they also need some help. So in this case, this is actually a flow, and notice we have screen flows, right? So we have a screen, get records. The question is, how do we make this specific automation well architected? How do we improve this, basically? How to improve the process design, data handling, error handling, the logic, all right? I'll paste this into the Excalibur so that you'll have easier time going through this. Any questions before we go through that second breakout? Yes? No?
No, should be good. Should be able to join
Okay.
back into the same rooms. So
Sounds
if
good.
anybody runs into any problems, please reach out, let me know.
All right. I'll go ahead and jump into that one.
Where do we go to join in?
So I think if you click on breakout rooms in the bottom, do you have an option for breakout
It's a
rooms?
join breakout.
Join breakout, yeah.
Yep. You
There
have
it
to
is.
click on
Yes.
more and then join breakout room.
There you go.
All right.
Got it.
That's good. So, all right, we can continue then. So, who wants to present first? So, what wasn't well architected, and what's your solution for challenge one? Should we start with group one? Anyone from group one wants to present? Feel free to share your screen.
Which one was group one? Was that your group or my group?
Yes.
The same
My
thing.
group. Yep.
I was like,
Our group. So that's
okay.
Timo
What group was I
and
in?
Dinesh. Anyone wants to share their screen? You can share.
I think it's you, Joey.
Yeah.
I can present.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah,
or
it's,
is Brian there? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, the
Or I could share my screen. I have it with me. So, and then you
oh,
can just.
sure, yeah, sure, you
like-
can do that. That will work too.
All right. So sharing my screen now. So yeah, go for it. So 5 of these, and then just indicate if it's well architected or not, and why.
Mm-hmm. So I think for the first point, we identified that there's a process. It's a manual process, however. So collecting the customer information and itinerary details is some part of some automated process before they're even talking with the agent. Could speed things up and would help with the I'm forgetting all the points here. The process design, operational logic. So just the efficiencies, making sure also the data integrity, maybe the information's more accurately captured in that process potentially. I think we came up with number one, not being very well architected. Number two, I think we said not well architected because of a repetitive steps. So it sounded like there were multiple steps: book a flight, book a hotel, transportation. And before each of those steps, there was gathering customer travel preferences. So that's repetitive. That could be done one time before doing any of those other steps. Number 3, I think we made an assumption here. So we said this was well architected if we assume that the common set of steps is reusable. However, if that common set of steps isn't reusable, then we would say that it's not well architected. So we want to make sure we're using the reusable common pieces of logic throughout each of those steps. Number 4. This one I thought sounded like something that would upset me if I was the customer. So I think we went with not well architected.
Or the
You don't
agent.
really want to be, yeah, on hold with the agent while they're trying to fix an IT error. So maybe I don't know, a callback or something that's a little more streamlined, doesn't keep the customer on hold and the agent tied up on a call while they're waiting for a resolution. And number 5, I think we said that was good, that they, assuming these are the KPIs they want to see, that this is good. They have a dashboard where they can see the information they need to see. I think that covers it unless anyone from the team wants to add.
I guess that really well put what we discussed.
Right. Thank you, group 1. Now it's for group 2.
I can present if nobody else wants to jump in. I know we're getting close to time too, so we pretty much agreed with what you had. The only difference was with number 3. Well, a couple things. So we kind of picked up on number 2, where agent books flights, hotels, and local transportation in order. That felt very rigid. And we kind of asked the question, well, what if they want to book their hotel first and then figure out their flights based on their hotel? Or what if they don't need a hotel at all, or that kind of thing? It felt like it was very rigid, and there was no flexibility here for doing different process, the process in a different order. For number 3, the one you guys said you thought was well architected, we took the negative approach of we assumed it was not, we assumed that the common set of steps were reproduced in every flow, not that they were actually built common. So any changes would have to be made multiple times, and if they're tightly coupled to the calling process, then any changes made in those sub processes could wreak havoc to things above it. So that was really kind of where our differences were, but pretty much the same. And then number 4 was pretty much that's we're all going to quit if we have this process where we have to call an IT staff member, or if we're the IT staff member that's getting called every time to look up the error. So
Yep. Thank you for that. All right, now for challenge 2, I'll let your group present first, or if you want to present
we
it.
can do that. Does somebody else want to, other than me, want to present?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'll do it. So yeah, so this let me share so we can kind of all look at the same thing here. Share screen. Okay. Yeah, so I had some trouble figuring out how to use Excel-a-Draw. So we ended up with 5 copies of the same screenshot pasted into it because it didn't seem like it was working. But that was on me for not spending more time actually using the tool. So, but in any case, we looked at the flow here, and it felt like the big things was there's no error handling whatsoever in here, it seems like. And it's really, again, it's a very rigid set of steps. There's no, it does this and then it does this and then it does this and then it does this in this exact order every time. And if there were issues that came up here, say it couldn't find a flight, what happens? Does it blow up? We don't know. So really it felt like it needed to be broken up into a couple of different flows and maybe be able to try to parallelize some of the processing here. And in addition to that, there's not really any, we kind of felt like it needed like a confirmation screen before we actually, booked it. And there's no like response back to the customer saying, congratulations, this is what we booked for you. It just ends with we created data. There was, and then really just the data handling, it's stuck in all of these steps until it gets to the very end. Again, if something happens in the middle here, it's gonna potentially fail and never make it to the end, and we won't know why. So
Right. I was just thinking, and if you confirm the flights, what if they want to take the flight and they don't like the hotel we confirmed, or,
yeah.
So maybe you present it all, but you need to book a little bit, maybe update these as we go.
Yep, absolutely.
Good, thank you. So, well, I'll share my screen again, and then let's the other group present. Who wants to present the next one for challenge 2? Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if someone already
Yeah, go ahead.
volunteered, but basically we had pretty much the same things, right? So the error handling was the first thing that we spotted, that's non-existing, and then how cumbersome the whole process is, like that you need to step by step go through the entire thing. And then we were more thinking that there should be some, either that like you said also, that there needs to be like separate flows, or that it's more flexible for the needs, right? So basically the same thing. It's nice that they have a process in place, but that's not really well architected at all.
Yeah, I think one of our members said something to the effect of, this looks like what the customer would put together, if they're
Yes.
explaining their process, not an actually architected solution. So
well, it's a step that they have.
It's a good step. It's a good start.
Process, yes.
Yeah, it's a good start, right? It's a good start, but this isn't where you end at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a
This
good
is where you
flowchart,
ask
right?
what environment they built this in.
Yeah, did they build this in production directly? Is it currently active? Yeah.
You need
Always.
to review somebody's permissions.
You'll see 40 versions of it, right?
Yeah,
In production.
exactly.
Somebody has admin permissions that should not. It should be a lucid
Alright.
chart, not a flow,
Yep.
My favorite orgs where everyone's an admin.
right?
Yeah.
I guess
Cool.
if you create this flow in Salesforce, it will be like a straight line and you have to scroll all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was another thing I forgot. This is difficult to maintain too. If I need to make a change somewhere, then this entire thing has to be potentially impacted. And what if we're making multiple changes? Like, we have a group that's working on the hotel booking, and we have another group, maybe or another person that's working on the flight booking, and they both have to make changes here, then we're stepping on each other because there's just this one massive flow, basically.
Yeah.
They didn't know how
Anything
to use
else?
the decision. That's all.
Yeah, I think I realized when Jason was presenting you mentioned confirming. There's actually no way to. We have these steps of subflow filter assign 3 times, and at each time there's no way to choose a flight. It's just choosing it for you. So you'd have to go back, restart the whole
Yeah.
flow,
Yeah.
There's
change the
no
usage preferences.
confirmation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what if you
Oh.
want to choose your travel preferences? They
Yeah,
show it to
you don't have
they
any way
don't-
to change it.
Right.
Yeah.
We call it touch move, right?
Guys, I'll be right.
You can't change it anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we go through the different solutions? Is that it? So thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts, right? So some of you already has experience with architecting, but at the same time, you get to actually discuss this, right? And try to think how we actually architect this solution. And throughout that process, in many cases, it's really just exposure, right? At the same time, also understanding what are the different considerations. So with that, we'll just go through the potential solutions. All right, you can see my screen, right? Can you? All good?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so for number 1, it's actually not well architected. Why? So dream travel should be storing and searching for existing customer data rather than asking them again, right? So in a way, it's referring to the process design. Is it something that they have to repeat or not? It's not efficient, right? So number 2, it's also not, because agent should retrieve existing customer information from the system and collect all of the new customer travel preferences upfront. Notice the keyword here is beginning of each step. We don't want the customer having to tell their preferences each time they need to do something, right? And then for number 3, it's also not well architected because each flow should serve a single purpose. You'll notice here, at least in this specific case, it's assuming that it's not actually reusing things, saying that it has separate flows for each flight and it's not indicating that it's reusing it. So we're assuming that it's not. So everyone is correct there. And then for number 4, processes should actually use fault paths. So many of you already saw that, right? So it should show the details. Many of you have seen how an error from a flow would look like, right? It's not actually helping anyone. It doesn't tell you what it does. At least it would send an email to the person that made it, but what if the person that made it is no longer there, or their email is not active, or what, right? So a big part of it is this non-recoverable errors to agent, where possible recoverable errors fail silently, right? So how do we then process it? And then number 5 is it's actually a yes, because all metrics related to KPIs are included in at least one report or dashboard. Any questions here? Are we all good? I think you all got it correctly anyway. It's good. That's why it's very important for us to make assumptions and make it clear we're answering yes or no, and because of this reason, right? So that way we're clear in terms of why we're deciding it this way. No questions? Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, just real quick. I know we're going over time a little bit here, so if anybody needs to drop, please feel free to. I am recording the rest of this, so and I will post it later. So you won't miss anything basically when I'm getting that. So.
All right. So for the next one, take note, there are multiple potential solutions here. In this specific case, we'll be presenting 2 potential solutions. So in this case, anybody of you familiar with a product called Flow Orchestrator? Yes, no? Have you used it? Anybody?
The only time
yet.
I've really used it was ensuring that particular things were running in order, not
Right.
to this extent where we're splitting off into different processes. So.
Right.
All right. Quick background on what it is. So whenever you're dealing with orchestrator, think about processes that needs to be handed off to multiple different users. So whenever, let's say, there could be at least 5 people that needs to handle that, you could think about it like, let's say, like approval process, but something much more, wherein you could have step 1 is, okay, I go to this department. Step 2, this department. Step 3, right? Whenever there's something like that, Flow Orchestrator is something that you could consider in terms of implementation. One caveat there is it's actually operating on a freemium model. I'm not sure the current value in terms of the number of Flow Orchestrator runs you can do per year, but there's actually a fee for this. And I believe it's at around $1 per run for one full execution. All right. And then later on, I'll be discussing another potential solution using simply the regular flows. All right. With this, so number 1 is it's very important for us to utilize flow features that support asynchronous processing. So that's one, which is Flow Orchestrator or asynchronous spans. So remember, do we need everything to be done as the user is going through it, right? We want to be able to keep synchronous operations strictly focused on the work that keeps a user in real time. All right. That way, the user can focus and the rest can be done elsewhere, right? And then number 2 is each step within each stage performs a specific task. So we've actually identified that earlier, right? We want to be able to collect the customer information first. That's the first step, right? And then second one would be making each reservation. So that's a separate section. And then third one would be sending the communications or handling errors. So there are separate processes for it. And then number 3 is asynchronous steps execute in parallel. So whenever we can, we don't necessarily need to go for one or the other, right? Some of those can be handled separately because we've already gathered their travel preferences. There could be a lot more stuff happening in each of these subflows. And then flows invoking external system call or callouts or running processes should be using asynchronous paths. And then for number 4, orchestration contains error handling logic with a manual path in case an agent needs to follow up. So we have that, and then flows with data operations whenever we're doing what we call a DML. So it could be in the form of query, creation of a record, update. So we want to be able to have flow fault paths for each one. And then there's actually a second potential solution, which is simply using flows. In this case, we still have that screen flow, right? But it's something different. So we have the gathering of the loyalty number, getting customer record, request details. And then at this point, we're actually creating the travel request. After we create the travel request, it then fires all of these 2 record triggered flows. So in this case, it's actually creating the different reservations based on that request. So all of these are actually then running in the background. All right, that way we're actually separating things. With that, any questions on these?
I don't think I like this one because this one doesn't allow anyone to confirm anything before you make the actual reservations because it's just an automated flow.
Yep.
So maybe it should grab the reservations, but present it back into the original screen.
Right. Yes. Take note. There are many ways we can still
Yeah,
improve
right.
this.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Sorry.
But at the same time, yes. No, that's right. For example, one thing I also noticed here is there's no confirmation screen here, right? We want to be able to show to the user, hey, I've already processed this and it will happen in the background. But at the same time, imagine this as possibly one use case, right? This is, I would say, the happy path, right? Being able to do all of those in the background.
Exactly.
So you're right. At the same time, this is just illustrating some of the ways we can then leverage that. For example, identifying, hey, do we actually have fault paths on the different processes that we're running? So in
Yeah.
this example, for example, Access Flight Reservation System, it has a fault path to be able to notify support if something's happening, right? So take note, it's not the perfect solution, but at the same time, just illustrating some of the ways we can design this.
It's just a concept.
Yep. Since we can only do so much in a small screen, right?
Right.
So there's so many potential ways we can make this work in a real environment.
Just don't build it this way, but go on.
Yep. Any questions? Feedback? How was it? I guess how's the experience going through it? Just wondering.
Fun. I like this.
Yep.
Really
It's
good.
quite
Yeah.
you like it, all right. It's quite different from the typical community event wherein there's a speaker and then
No, I
everybody
love
just
this. This
listens,
is
right?
great.
So you actually get to think and
Yeah.
figure things out and try it out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's much more engaging,
So
I think, than
yeah.
just listening to someone talk through it.
yes. And yeah, with that, actually, as I mentioned earlier, you can go to architect.salesforce.com where you could find all of the resources. And yeah, that's it for me.
That site is
Let's increase
amazing.
that time.
I've
Yeah.
never seen it. Thank you. Been doing this a
Yes,
long time and I
yes.
never knew that site.
I'd say it's not that old, especially this well-architected framework. It's not that old. I'd say it's less than 2 years, this one. And these decision guides, I also even printed all of these because what I do is after I go through it and I'll send it to the next person within the team. Hey, just spend time here. It's one of the best investments that you can do because so many people think that, hey, I'm not an architect. I don't want to have to deal with that yet. Probably later on. But at the same time, these are what would help you later on have the opportunity to be able to discuss the pros and cons, right? And
Yeah.
one of the best ways for you to get selected is by showing up and showing what you're capable of, right? So yeah. Anything else? That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yep,
much, Joey,
that's it for me.
for making this work.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
The-
Appreciate everybody's willingness to participate. This was really fun.
Mhm.
I'll try to come up with some more interactive ones like this in the future. That being said, I do have one that I just scheduled for May with we got selected to have the AI and data presentation done from Salesforce for our community group. So that one's coming up in May. I just created the
Nice.
event for it. I'll
That's
start
awesome.
publicizing it here probably next month. So it should be a really good one. That's big stuff. It's all of the Einstein 1 platform stuff they're going to be talking about, going over all the new cool toys and features and functionality. So
I got to test the reply recommendations in the case wrap up. That was one of the
Is
pre-testing.
that in TDX?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Really
Cool.
neat.
Anybody going to Dreamforce? Just wondering.
I hope so, but not yet.
Hope so. Yep. Well, if ever you are, yeah, please get in touch. And even if you're not, actually, I just sent over my LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Awesome. Thank you.
yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you,
All right.
Joey.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jason.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.